Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to paint these watercolor poppies. Poppies are one of the birth month flowers for the month of August, and I cannot wait to show you how to paint this beautiful flower. We are using a 140-pound piece of cold press watercolor paper, a size 10 and a size 4 round brush, and I have my limited palette of colors. This is cad yellow, magenta, cerulean, indigo, and sap green. Okay, so to start, we're going to pick up our size 10 brush, and for me, I'm going to mix together magenta and yellow to get my red. Because I'm using a limited palette and I don't have red for these beautiful red poppies on my palette, I need to mix these two colors together to get the red. If you do have red, feel free to just use it without having to mix. I do like to add a little bit of magenta into my red mixtures. It gives it a little bit more punch and intensity. Sometimes reds tend to dry a little flat, and the magenta really helps that. So here I'm mixing my magenta and my yellow together until I am happy with the intensity and the punchiness of my red. It definitely leans a lot more magenta, but the yellow helps take it to a red place. Now I'm going to use this color to create the back fan petals of my poppy. So I'm creating this almost triangular shape, leaving the center of the flower open. You can see that first swipe is very concentrated. So I dip into some water and create a second petal that is a lot lighter in value. And this really helps the flower to feel like it has breathing room already. For this flower, I wanted to create petals in the front that look like they are covering the center just a bit. And so this moon shape or banana shape in the front is representing a group of petals that are kind of half seen so that the petals look like they're folding in on each other just a bit. So when I'm creating something that has really one color, like the petals in a poppy, I like to have areas of high pigment level, some areas that are lighter with more water, or I can lift some of the pigment out with a damp brush. And sometimes I'll even dip into either the yellow or the magenta and add some concentrated color in specific spots. And that way we have a lot of dimension in something that can look really flat. Now we're going to paint another poppy that is being viewed from the side. We cannot see the center. We're going to paint a fan of petals just like we did on the first flower, where we had some concentrated color. We're adding some water in some areas. We're adding more pigment with this magenta in a few specific spots. Just remember that all of these petals are fanning out. The edges are a little bit ripply, but they're all coming together at a point, just like a cone, where they are going to be attached to a stem. So we're going to mix sap green with some of our cad yellow to give us a light, bright green color to start painting our greenery. It's still a pretty concentrated green, but I love adding cad yellow to warm up my sap green. We're going to keep the stems really thin. I really love the use of implied lines where I don't have to attach every single line. You can see that my lines for my stems can be disconnected in some places. I also like to attach the greenery at the base of my flowers that are being seen from the side while it's still wet. So some of that greenery blends in just a bit. If yours is not still wet, that's totally fine. It's just something that I do like to take advantage of if my flower is still wet. Now poppies have these beautiful scraggly leaves that are so fun to paint with this larger size 10 round brush. I'm really just using the tip of my brush and dragging very quickly in toward the stem line that I have created for these little leafy branches. And you can see also with the leafy bits, I am using implied lines. I'm not attaching every single bit of the leaf to the stem. I like when some of them kind of float out in midair because our brain connects it. We don't have to attach every little bit of it. I did add some indigo into my green to add some darker areas, but it was still really wet, and so it didn't really get too dark. Added a little bit more of my cad yellow back in to give me some of that brighter yellow green. And then I'm creating a little bud so that we have that rule of threes. I've got a big poppy, a half seen poppy, and then I wanted a little green bud. Now, poppy buds are so cool. They've got this round ball shape and this little crown on the top. So I have this one tilting down a little bit, and while it's still wet, I am adding some green with more indigo in it. So it's got some of that darker bluish green for some easy wet into wet shadows. Now my greenery felt a little bit too heavy and dark, so I mixed some cad yellow into my green to get a very bright yellow green. And anywhere that I found some space, I added a swipe of this light yellow-green wash, and it really brightened up the piece in the greenery. And thankfully, that's the same green I needed for the center of my poppy, so I swiped very quickly into the center, still leaving some white space so that the center of the poppy also has room to breathe. Now that my petals have completely dried, they are a little bit flat. I want to bring a more oomph and contrast into them. I mixed more of my red together using magenta and yellow, and I'm swiping some of this red wash over a few areas of my poppy, really just trying to maintain some of those light areas, but give a lot of dimension and kind of a layered look to my poppy. Especially as everything dries, you can continue to add more layers as you go. Now we're going to paint the black portion of the centers of our poppies, but I like to mix my own blacks. So here I have picked up indigo and I am mixing it into our reds on the left and also adding the greens from the right to get a deeper color. And I can add more indigo, more magenta, more greens, whatever I need to get closer to black. But I like that it's not fully lamp black. It has a lot of dimension, leans a little bit more blue. Once we are happy with the color that we are mixing, you can see I'm using a small size 4 round brush, and I'm starting with the dots at the end of my stamen, and I'm going in a half circle because the petals on the bottom are covering half of the center. So we don't want to put any of this black color on those bottom petals. I'm also adding some dark dots around the green center, and then while it's still wet, I am going to drag that paint with the other end of my brush into very thin lines. So this is a great way to drag the paint out to get a thin line that you don't necessarily have to paint. And then I can fill in more dots and more lines, filling in the white space and the half circle, just making sure not to bring it too far down so that we are not going on those bottom petals. I mixed up a slightly darker green using my cad yellow into my blues just to give some dimension into the center, just a quick mark of green into the center. Now mixing up some more indigo into my sap green, we're going to finish the painting by adding some more leafy details. Now that I'm using my smaller size 4 round brush, I can get really tiny textured jagged details, especially when I'm using a deeper, darker blue-green using indigo. It's harder to see in the video, but up close you can see so much dimension, and I just love having light, medium, and dark values within the flower, within the center, within the greenery. So I find ways that I can add this color into the greenery, but I also try to use it very minimally so that it is there and adds shadow and dimension, but it doesn't overtake all of those beautiful colors that we have built up, the light, bright yellow green, and those medium values of green that really are the basis for our greenery. Now, typically at this point in the painting, I would be totally done, but I did notice that when I added the filaments, those dots at the top of the stamen, that one of my petals was still a little bit wet, so it blended out. So some of those dark spots were really fuzzy. Now, I don't necessarily mind that look, so I wasn't sad about it, but I did need to go back and add a concentrated dot of this darker black color to really define some of those filaments at the end of the stamen. So again, mixing up my indigo with magentas, sap green to get that dark bluish black, and then adding it anywhere it needs it in the center of my poppy. So I'm going to write Poppy and August at the bottom of my paper since I'm doing this as part of the monthly flower project, but you can paint poppies any time of the year. They are so, so beautiful. Thanks for painting with me today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, guys.